Hello, everyone. Welcome to World Beat, where we show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it. The ongoing discrimination and violence against women in the Middle East and parts of North Africa remains pervasive and entrenched. From Algeria all the way to Yemen, women face a host of challenges relating to marriage, child custody, access to education, and healthcare. Governments there routinely harass, persecute, and even jail women when they try speaking up for greater human rights, freedoms, and social justice. This graph shows the extent of some of their challenges, whether it's applying for a job, traveling outside the home, choosing where to live, or even a simple thing like applying for a passport. Women in the Middle East, compared to the rest of the world, face enormous restrictions. My next guest is using media to train a new generation of women leaders in the Middle East that she hopes will turn the tide in their favor. Shireen Taber is director of Middle East Women's Leadership Network and founder of Empower Women Media. She's, by the way, an Iranian-American and the author of Muslims Next Door. Shireen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Why did you feel the need to create women's media networks?
Yes, thank you. Well, the research shows that the fastest way to actually impact change for women is through media. Increasingly, more and more women are on social media and they're communicating. They're sharing things that they've never shared before, including many of the injustices they experience. And so we're using media to get women sharing their stories and making change.
And talk to that point, what kinds of media projects do you guys actually produce?
Yes, well, we're using the whole spectrum of media. So TV broadcasting, social media, short films, especially documentary short films where women can tell their stories in a concise way. Of course, writing and radio and audio. So we look for women who want to share their story, and we find the best platform, the best media platform to do that.
Tell me about Middle East Women's Leadership Network and Empower Women Media.
Yes. So initially, we started as a Middle East Women's Leadership Network to help women develop confidence, to network, to build the skills so they could communicate more effectively. It takes time. They need coaching. They need role models. And once they're ready, we develop a plan, an action plan, where they can communicate their story through media. Typically, we start with a short film, but we also encourage them to use a website or social media.
Can you paint a picture of some of the challenges women face today in the Middle East?
Yes, well, a new concept that we're trying to help women understand as Christians and even our Muslim friends is that there is religious discrimination. What we try to help people understand is the difference between inter-religious freedom and intra-religious freedom. Inter-religious freedom is helping Christians and Muslims and Jews live as neighbors in the Middle East. But intra-religious freedom is when women within their own religious context, for example, a Muslim woman is feeling discriminated, persecuted, or she's not able to live her whole life, her full life. And so we're trying to help women understand what their basic human rights are so that they can travel, they can go to school, they can choose who they marry, they can learn about free speech. So we are educating women on the full spectrum of their religious freedoms.
Would you agree with me that countries like, for example, Tunisia and Algeria, progress is being made in these countries, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. Tunisia is on the forefront. They just passed an equality legislation which allows women freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and really freedom of religion, which means they can choose to follow Sharia law or not follow it. This is historic in the Arab world. So there's some really exciting things happening in Tunisia that I believe can spread to the entire Arab world and throughout the Muslim world.
What are some of the biggest hurdles that remain in this part of the world?
Well, it's interesting. So even though Tunisia is seeing some real changes, the neighboring countries like Jordan and Egypt and so forth, they are more tentative about changing these laws for women. They're really sticking to looking at the Quran for their framework. And so we're encouraging women to communicate the need to look at their universal human rights and to actually exercise those.
You have an Iranian heritage. You grew up in a home with a Muslim and Christian parents. How did that shape your life and your ministry?
Yes, well, I was blessed to have a father from Iran who allowed me religious freedom. And that's why I'm so passionate about women having the choice to make their own faith decisions. And so, even though my father was Muslim, he allowed me to explore, to have relationships, to travel. And ultimately, I came to my own faith decision, which is to follow Christ. And he honored that. And so, that's a really unique story. And I want to be able to share that with young women to have the freedom to communicate their desires with their parents and to find a way to live hospitably with one another.
Okay, terrific. We'll have to leave it there. Shireen, thank you so much for all you do, especially for the women across the Middle East. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Well, folks, that is it for today's edition of World Beat. Until next time, goodbye and God bless you. Now, back to Newswatch.